The dust settled, the police tape went up, and a horrifying secret was unearthed. Bodies within a mother's home. But this isn't just about discovery. It's about the insidious progression of darkness, the unraveling of a mind, and the hidden truths that surface when the facade of family life shatters. Join us as we reconstruct the chilling forensics and expose the psychological path to unimaginable tragedy. Picture the ideal. Morning light filters through oak trees lining a quiet cul-de-sac. Sprinklers hiss perfect arcs onto emerald lawns. At 223 Maple Drive, a ceramic garden gnome smiles perpetually beneath a blooming hydrangea. This was the home, neighbors would later say, where you could smell cinnamon and baking cookies on autumn afternoons. The picture of suburban serenity. But every facade has its fault line. The call came in at 8:17 p.m. as dusk bled into night. The audio is a study in controlled panic. A dispatcher's calm questions met with a man's voice, tight and trembling. He was a handyman, just finishing a repair. He'd been asked to investigate a persistent, damp smell. His words begin to fracture as he describes what he found, not in a leaking pipe, but under a newly laid section of the basement floor. It's not right. There's fabric. I think I saw a hand. Suddenly, the peaceful street is an amphitheater of flashing crimson and cobalt. The warm porch lights of neighbors are drowned out by the harsh white glare of police floodlights. That sweet, imagined scent of cookie is overwritten by something industrial and ominous. The tang of chemical cleaners fighting a losing battle against a far more organic truth. The perfect silence is shredded by the static crackle of police radios. In that moment, 223 Maple Drive transforms. It is no longer a home. It is a crime scene. The responding officer, faces etched in the stark shadows of their own flashlights, move with a grim new purpose. One keys his shoulder mic, his voice low but urgent, cutting through the night stillness. The message that goes back to dispatch is simple, professional, and utterly chilling. We're going to need multiple units. This is bigger than we thought. And with those words, the quiet street and the entire illusion of safety it represented shatters forever. The journey into the heart of a domestic nightmare has begun, not with a scream, but with a radio transmission. Leo's expectations that Tuesday were perfectly ordinary. A service call for a persistent, damp smell. He'd been to hundreds like it, usually a dead rodent, sometimes a broken pipe. His mind was on the next job, the invoice, the clock. He was met at the door by Elena Martinez, the homeowner, who offered a tight smile and a quick handshake before leading him to the basement door. The air in the hallway was clean, scented with lemon polish, but as she opened the door to the descending stairs, the first wave hit him. Not damp, not mildew. It was a sweet, cloying odor, like overripe fruit left in a hot car. He shrugged mentally. Probably a raccoon. They get big. The basement was unfinished, a labyrinth of storage boxes and old furniture under the sickly glow of a single bulb. The smell intensified near a back wall, behind an old water heater. Elena explained the odor had been worsening for weeks, seeping upstairs. Leo knelt, his flashlight beam cutting through the dusty air. The concrete floor here was different. The surrounding slab was aged, cracked, and stained. But a rectangular patch, roughly 4 by 6 feet, was conspicuously smooth and gray. It was newer, significantly newer. The edges where it met the old floor were neat, but not professional. A do-it-yourself job. That was the first wrongness. He tapped the new concrete. It felt sound, but the smell was strongest right here, as if emanating from beneath it. His initial theory collapsed. A pipe leak wouldn't explain the fresh patch. A dead animal wouldn't warrant it. A low, primal unease began to hum in his veins. He scraped at a thin edge with his pocket knife. A small flake came up. Underneath, he saw not dirt, but a piece of dark, patterned fabric. A towel or a blanket. He pulled gently and more fabric, stained and heavy. Then he saw the curve, a pale, waxy curve that his brain, for one merciful second, refused to process. It was a fingertip, then a hand. A human hand, curled as if in sleep, nestled in the concrete like some fossil from a forgotten age. Leo stumbled back, his breath gone. The flashlight clattered to the floor, its beam spinning wildly, illuminating another corner of the basement, where another section of floor looked disturbingly, recently disturbed. And another. The horror wasn't solitary. It was multiplied. In the dancing light, the basement was no longer a storage space. It was a gallery of secret, a catacomb, with a fresh, terrible geometry he was now the first to see. By morning, the quiet street had become a spectacle. New satellite trucks crowded the cul-de-sac, their coiled cables snaking across manicured lawns. Neighbors gathered in small, hushed clusters, their robes pulled tight against the dawn chill as they watched the methodical violation of their normalcy. Children were hurried onto school buses without a glance toward the house, a silent testament to the adult fear now permeating the air. The reactions formed a chorus of cognitive dissonance. "She was the PTA treasurer," one woman insisted, her voice a mixture of defiance and confusion. "She organized the book drive last fall." This sentiment was a shield, an attempt to reconcile the unimaginable with a woman who brought homemade brownies to Block Park. Yet, another neighbor, speaking in a lower register, offered a counter-narrative. "You always got a weird vibe from that basement. The fans ran constantly, even in winter. We just thought she had a moisture problem." This was the first terrifying pattern to emerge. The horror had unfolded, not in a remote cabin, but here, amidst the mundane soundtrack of lawnmowers and mail trucks. Life had continued its placid routine literally feet away from a hidden atrocity. Paperboys had pedaled past, dogs had been walked, holiday decorations had been hung and taken down, all while the secret festered within the perfectly painted walls of 223 Maple Drive. The community's trust was not just broken, it was retroactively poisoned, making every past interaction a subject of grim re-examination. The facade had been so complete, so convincing, that its shattering left everyone questioning not just their neighbor, but their own perception. And as the sun rose higher, the real work began, for the forensic teams who would now translate that neighborhood shock into cold, hard evidence. The emotional chaos of the street met its methodical counterpoint inside the yellow tape. While neighbors grappled with shock, a silent, systematic deconstruction began within 223 Maple Drive. The home was stripped of its domestic identity. Furniture was moved, rugs were rolled, and in their place, a forensic grid took shape. Technicians in white Tyvek suits moved with deliberate silence, placing numbered markers, measuring distances, and photographing every square foot from multiple angles. The living room was no longer a living room, it was Sector A. The kitchen became Sector B. Each space was reduced to coordinates on a map of atrocity. The primary weapon in this phase was light, but not the kind that illuminate. Alternate light sources, ALS, cast an eerie violet glow across surfaces, searching for latent blood traces invisible to the naked eye. In the basement, the concrete patch noted by Leo was scanned with ground-penetrating radar, revealing not just one, but 3 distinct anomalous densities beneath the slab. Meanwhile, the subtle, shifting air currents in the house guided another specialist, a cadaver dog. The Belgian Malinois, trained to detect the specific scent compounds of human decomposition, worked silently, leading its handler to a closet under the stairs, then to a section of the garage floor, both sites appearing utterly ordinary to the human eye. A forensic archaeologist on scene would later explain the spatial challenge. You're not excavating a burial site in a field. You're working within an active, complex structure. The perpetrator used the home's own architecture against it. Pipes, wiring conduit, support beam. All these normal features became potential camouflage. Our job was to listen to the house, the wrong sound when tapping drywall, the slight temperature differential on a floorboard, the inconsistent pattern of settled dust. The structure itself began to tell us where to look. The most critical finding emerged not from a single location, but from the collective pathological analysis. As the medical examiner later noted, the state of decomposition varied drastically between the concealed remains. The biological timelines were inconsistent. One individual had been there for years, another for perhaps 18 months, a third for a much shorter period. The stages of decay did not match. This was the first scientific confirmation of the unthinkable narrative. This was not a single, catastrophic event. This was a process, a horror that had been reintroduced and re-secreted within these walls not once, but multiple times over years. The house hadn't just hidden bodies, it had chronicled a series of atrocities, each buried in a different chapter of its dreadful history. With the physical evidence cordoned and tagged, the investigation pivoted to a more elusive landscape, the digital footprint. While the concrete in the basement had set hard, the data trails left behind remained soft, telling, and damning. Homicide detective, now working in tandem with financial forensic units, began to weave a reverse chronology from 1,000 electronic breadcrumbs. The first thread was financial. A dedicated review of bank and credit card statements revealed a telling pattern interspersed with grocery purchase and utility payment. 18 months prior, a sizable purchase of quick-set concrete mix, heavy-duty plastic sheeting, and industrial-grade lime from a local hardware store. 2 years prior, a receipt for a similar load of materials, alongside a rental charge for a concrete mixer. 3 years prior, a credit card charge for a large-capacity wet-dry vacuum, and several cans of odor-sealing primer. Each transaction was a quiet financial echo of a horrific physical act. Parallel to this, the victimology unit cross-referenced missing persons reports against the homeowners' known association. A pattern emerged from the files. A former business partner had vanished without a trace. Approximately 18 months ago, her car found abandoned at a hiking trailhead. A distant cousin had ceased all communication with the family roughly 2 years prior, last seen leaving a dinner at the Maple Drive home. A former tenant who had rented a room in the house 3 years ago moved out suddenly and was never heard from again, his social security number going dormant. The most chilling layer was excavated from search histories on a home computer. In the days following each of the dates correlated to a disappearance, the same disturbing queries appeared. Rapid decomposition inhibitors, concrete drying time and high humidity, legal definitions of a missing person. The digital persona was researching the very problems the physical persona had created. This wasn't the panicked search history of someone covering a single tragic accident. This was a recurring manual, consulted and updated over years. The horrifying conclusion was now inescapable, supported by both forensic pathology and digital forensic. 223 Maple Drive had not been the site of a single explosive tragedy. It had been an active, secret cemetery for years. The horror was not an event, but an ongoing project. The home's normalcy was not a backdrop to the crime. It was the essential camouflage for a series of crimes, each carefully interred within the rhythm of suburban life, leaving a trail of digital receipts and silent victims in its wake. This realization forced the next, more penetrating question. What kind of mind could sustain such a devastating double life? To understand the architecture of such a crime, one must first attempt to blueprint the mind that built it. The public portrait of Elena Martinez was a masterpiece of curated normalcy. Her social media feed was a sun-drenched gallery of domestic bliss. Birthday cakes decorated with meticulous care, spotless living rooms adorned with seasonal wreaths, smiling selfies with her son captioned #blessed. This was the persona the world consumed, the capable, devoted, slightly perfectionist single mother. But behind this shimmering curtain, the private records reveal a starkly different canvas. Financial documents subpoenaed by investigators showed a staggering secret debt, maxed credit cards, payday loans, and a mortgage in constant jeopardy. Medical history, pieced together from disparate sources, indicated untreated psychiatric episodes years prior, noted as acute anxiety with dissociative feature, for which she never followed up on referrals. Neighbors, upon reflection, offered not tales of friendship, but of observation. She was always cleaning, one remarked. I'd see her at 2 a.m. through the window, wiping down the kitchen counters, not relaxing, just scrubbing. A forensic psychologist consulting on the case would frame this not as a contradiction, but as a critical psychological dialectic. We are often seeing a pathological response to profound internal fragmentation, the expert might suggest. The external perfection, the immaculate home, the performative motherhood, becomes a desperate containment unit for internal chaos, shame, or rage. The compulsive cleaning isn't just about dirt. It's a ritualistic attempt to purify a perceived corruption within. The extreme control exerted over the domestic environment may have been the only realm where she felt sovereign, a control that tragically metastasized. Several pathological frameworks could be applied. Was it a form of malignant narcissism, where the preservation of a perfect facade justified any hidden horror, or a dissociative disorder, where compartmentalization became so absolute that the acts of concealment existed in a separate mental chamber from the acts of baking cookies for a school fundraiser. Perhaps it echoes the banality of evil concept, not in a political sense, but in a domestic one. The horrifying reality that profound evil can be administered not with a snarl, but with a methodical housekeeping calm between errands and emails. The central, haunting question thus crystallizes. Was Elena Martinez a monster who expertly mimicked humanity, hiding in plain sight? Or was she a fragile psyche that, under the compound pressures of debt, isolation, and untreated illness, gradually shattered? Did the first secret, perhaps born from a moment of passion or panic, create a psychological prison from which the only escape was to build more walls, both literal and figurative, around further horrors? The evidence suggests a mind that did not erupt, but eroded, its moral foundation slowly crumbling under the weight of its own secrets until atrocity became just another chore on the list, another thing to be managed and hidden away in the dark, quiet spaces of the home. This erosion leads us inevitably to the moment when that private world was forced into direct confrontation with reality, within the sterile confines of an interrogation room. The initial interrogation presented a study in performative normalcy. Elena Martinez sat with perfect posture, her hands folded neatly on the steel table. She was cooperative, even concerned, her brow furrowed appropriately as detectives asked about her safety, about potential intruders, about anyone who might have wanted to harm her or frame her. She spoke in complete, measured sentences, painting herself as a bewildered victim. "I just don't understand who could have done this," she said, her voice a blend of confusion and distress. "We've always felt so safe there." The pivot was methodical. The lead detective, having established her narrative, slowly introduced the dissonant facts. Not accusations at first, but curiosity. "Your bank statement shows some unusual purchases. Can you help me understand why you bought 80 pounds of lime and a roll of industrial plastic sheeting in March of last year?" Her cooperative facade flickered. The questions continued, each one anchoring her to a tangible, purchased item that corresponded to a concealment event. The concrete mixer rental, the odor-blocking primer, the wet-dry vacuum. Her language began to frown. The definitive eye of her initial statement softened, then vanished. "Someone might have used my car," she offered. "Then, those supplies could have been for a landscaping project." Finally, a passive, dissociative construction. "The floor was redone because there was a spill." The pronouns detached her from the action. Her sentences grew shorter, laden with pauses, as if she was mentally consulting a disintegrating script. The pivotal moment arrived when the detective abandoned the fiction of an intruder entirely. He slid a photograph of a hardware store receipt across the table, dated the week her business partner vanished. "Elena," he said, his tone shifting from collaborative to conclusive. "You bought this. You carried these bags into your home. There is no other person. Explain this to me." Her performative concern evaporated, replaced by a flat, empty stare. The chatter stopped. She retreated into a profound silence, a fortress of non-engagement, broken only by occasional, fantastical murmurs about night visitors, things she sleepwalked through. The performance was over. The calculation, however, was clear. Confronted with the inescapable geometry of her own digital and financial footprint, she chose silence. This retreat became the final piece of probable cause. The decision to move from witness to arrestee was no longer a legal question, but a procedural formality. The handcuffs that clicked shut behind her back were not responding to a confession, but to the deafening silence that followed the collapse of every possible lie. The trial transformed the horror into a formalized duel of narratives. In one corner, the prosecution presented a story of calculated, organized evil. They methodically walked the jury through receipts, search histories, and forensic timelines, building a portrait of a woman who meticulously planned concealments alongside grocery lists. Their closing argument was stark. This was not madness. This was method. This was the ultimate perversion of homemaking. Against this, the defense painted a canvas of profound mental collapse. Their expert witnesses spoke of dissociative barriers, of a psyche so fractured it could compartmentalize atrocity. They argued the Elena Martinez in the courtroom was but a shell, a host unaware of the actions of other, submerged aspects of a shattered self. Their narrative was one of tragedy, not monstrosity. The trial's most devastating testimony came not from an expert, but from her son, speaking in a quiet, flat voice that echoed through the silent courtroom. He described the constant hum of fans, the locked doors within his own home, the distant look in his mother's eyes that he called the blankness. He did not accuse. He simply bore witness to the slow vanishing of the person he knew. His words held a weight no forensic evidence could match. The jury's verdict, guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, was delivered in a packed room thick with anticipation. The defendant showed no reaction, no tears, no flinch, no relief. Her face remained as impassive as it had throughout the trial, a void where the world expected to see a catharsis. The judge imposed a sentence of life without parole, the gavel's crack providing a period where society demanded one. But the legal conclusion felt like an administrative formality, not an answer. The system had successfully defined the what and the how, assigning a legal label and a punishment. Yet the core, gnawing why, remained untouched, dangling over the proceedings like an unanswered question in the air. Justice, in its theatrical, procedural glory, could name the crime and cage the perpetrator, but it could not illuminate the darkness within. It could only confirm the terrible shape of its shadow. The gavel's echo faded, but the trauma remained, seeping into the foundation of ordinary lives. For the son, the aftermath was a life sentence of a different kind, not behind bars, but within a shattered narrative of his own childhood. Every memory in the family home was now retroactively poisoned, every photograph scrutinized for clues he'd missed. His was a quiet, private grief, compounded by the public spectacle of his mother's crimes. The geography of the neighborhood itself transformed. Several families on the cul-de-sac sold their homes at a loss, unable to shake the proximity to the unimaginable. The house at 223 Maple Drive stood first as a boarded-up relic, then as an empty lot after a developer razed it. The land sold for a fraction of its value. No new home was built. The scar on the lot remained, a grassy void neighbors averted their eyes from. The community developed a collective nervous system, a hypervigilance that turned mundane events into potential alarms. A strange car idling too long, a neighbor's unexplained absence, an odd smell. All were now filtered through a new, grim lens. A trauma specialist would identify this as communal vicarious victimization. When violence erupts in a trusted, familiar space, it explained, it doesn't just violate individuals, it violates the shared map of safety. The entire community's sense of security is fractured, leading to a prolonged state of anxious reassessment. The most enduring legacy was the corruption of the mundane. The simple, homely scent of baking cookies or a musty basement could now trigger a cold ripple of fear. The very essence of domestic life, the privacy of one's home, the trust in a neighbor's smile, had been weaponized. The horror wasn't just in what happened behind those doors, but in the terrifying revelation that the doors themselves were no longer a guarantee of anything. This collective psychological shift, from innocence to a seasoned, weary suspicion, was perhaps the most profound and lasting verdict of all, setting the stage for the final, unanswerable questions about the society that bred such darkness. The case of 223 Maple Drive closes with a verdict, but it opens into a maze of unsettling questions that hold a mirror to our own society. How does the architecture of ordinary life, the school runs, the grocery trips, the quiet lawns, so effectively conceal such extreme darkness? The investigation ends, but the interrogation of our collective assumptions must begin, viewed through 3 critical lenses. First, the lens of isolation. The modern suburban ideal prizes privacy, autonomy, and the curated nuclear family. This very structure creates a perfect ecosystem for secret. Anonymity is not just possible, it is ingrained. We respect fences, we avoid nosiness under the guise of respecting boundaries, and in doing so, we build silent territories where anything can grow unseen. The tragedy exposes the double-edged sword of our live and let live ethos. The very respect for privacy that defines civil society can become the oxygen for private horror. Second, the lens of mental health. Our systems are often designed to catch those who openly cry for help or visibly spiral, but they are woefully inadequate at identifying the internal collapse masked by external competence. When does eccentric become dangerous? When does the reclusive neighbor cross from being private to being a threat? We lack the vocabulary, the tools, and often the will to intervene in the gradual, quiet shattering of a mind that maintains a perfect facade. The case begs a painful question. Does our society only see mental illness when it becomes inconvenient, rather than when it is incubating? Third, the lens of our own fascination. Why are we, the public, drawn to such narratives of domestic horror? It is more than morbid curiosity. These stories force a terrifying renegotiation of trust. They make us re-examine our own foundation, our own neighbors, our own capacity for hidden darkness. We consume these details not merely to understand the monster, but to perform a desperate act of reassurance. We scrutinize the evidence to convince ourselves we would have seen the signs that the line between them and us is bold and clear. The terrifying truth reflected back from 223 Maple Drive is that this line is not bold at all. It is invisible. It is woven into the same fabric of stress, isolation, and hidden struggle that touches countless lives. The perpetrator was not a foreign creature who invaded a peaceful world. She was a product of it. Her evil was not supernatural. It was horrifically, banally human, cultivated in the quiet, overlooked spaces between normal days. We are left not with closure, but with a chilling reflection. We watch these stories to map the monsters, hoping to chart their territory far from our own. But the final, empty shot is not of a monster, but of an empty lot. The house is gone. The grass grows over the scar. The physical evidence is erased. What remains is the memory and the haunting, unanswerable question that lingers in the space where a home once stood. If the darkness can take root there, in a house of cookies and homework and hydrangeas, then where exactly do we believe we are safe? How horror can fester within ordinary life? Moving beyond sensationalism, it uses the framework of a disturbing discovery to deliver substantive lessons in forensic science, illustrating how concrete analysis, digital footprint examination, and cadaver dogs deconstruct a crime scene. It serves as a case study in forensic psychology, exploring concepts like compartmentalization and dissociation to examine how a facade of normalcy can fracture under private turmoil. The narrative deliberately shifts focus from graphic detail to systemic analysis, investigating how societal structures like suburban isolation and mental health system gaps can enable darkness to remain hidden. It challenges the audience to consider three critical lenses: the isolation that privacy can breed, the fine line between eccentricity and danger that community awareness must navigate, and our own cultural fascination with domestic horror. The script's core educational value lies in its ethical framing. It centers victim dignity, emphasizes investigative methodology over violence, and concludes by highlighting mental health resources and community vigilance. The goal is to provide not a voyeuristic experience, but a catalyst for critical thinking, fostering awareness of psychological distress signs, appreciation for forensic science, and a more empathetic, informed approach to the true crime genre itself.